exciting, and I'm with Jon Morley. Welcome. Jon, working now full-time at Dunelm.
I am indeed, yes.
And what's the position there?
So I'm IT Service Support Manager, which is essentially heading up the service desk and the service operations team. So first and second line in old money, which I'm in the process of flattening and looking to grow and leverage the staff that are there.
Okay, so I mean, you've been around seeing the market for a while, doing various different roles and different contracts and that sort of thing. So I mean, that gives you a good perspective on what organisations are doing. You contribute to one of our special interest groups, which is great. We'll come on to that in a second. But I mean, just purely from the kind of work point of view, what sort of practical things do you bring? When you actually go into an organisation, say, right, well, here we are. We've got some change to make happen. There's so much hype about digital, and actually, what do you do when you go in to do that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is building relationships. You can, whether you put BRM around it or whether it's just getting on with your colleagues, you've got to be able to take people with you. So the reorg, which I'm in the process of doing with my team at Dunelm, for example, the first thing I did was actually spend my time recruiting people and just surviving, but equally getting to know people, what makes them tick. And then after a bit of time, I was then able to look at more of a leverage model rather than just having a first and second line. It was more about, well, who can learn from each other, how can we leverage that skill set. So the first thing I like to do is to make friends, find out who we can work together with, ditto with suppliers and so on. And then that gives you the building blocks for then moving in with the processes and all that good stuff.
So I mean, it's an interesting point there. I've just been talking about that in terms of whether you use a model, because relationship management is something that's been around for a long time, but we've got BRM, working in a small teams has been around a long time. We've got DevOps, automation's been around. So, I mean, do you take a very pragmatic view about those things, or I mean, do you think it's worth looking at a number of different models? Do models help you?
I think models do help. I think from I'll come back to the relationship piece in a second. I think from my own journey, I mean, I've done ITIL from top to bottom with the expert and the various steps between there. I've done TOGAF for architecture, COBIT, DevOps, and various other bits and pieces. I'm not going to sit and rattle them all off, but they do help you to a certain degree, but ultimately the theory can only get you so far. It's about how you apply it in practice. Going back to the relationship piece, none of these models are going to give you those soft skills that you're going to need to get to know people and managing expectations. So you've got to have a dose of common sense, you've got to be likeable, and you've got to be able to stay focused first and foremost. But what I like about the more emerging stuff like DevOps, for example, is it's not just focused on the good stuff like lean and agile and automation, but it's also heavy on communication and collaboration. And I don't see myself as so much of a leader or a manager of my team. I see myself as part of that team. So I'm very open with the staff, saying, look, what can I learn from you? What can you learn from me? How can we support each other? So taking those kind of bits and pieces, particularly from DevOps Agile, has really given me a more broadened view, whereas years ago as a change manager, thou shalt not go past live unless you fill in my piece of paper. Totally can't work that way anymore.
I mean, I would hope that, that one thing in DevOps is that there's a number of those kind of misconceptions on both sides that are being unearthed, in the sense that more DevOps people are suddenly realizing that they actually have quite an old view of ITSM and ITIL, for example. They think it is just about control and everything, doing things in a strict way, which it doesn't have to be, not necessarily. So I think that works both ways. I mean, do you find, and in the organisation that you're now, are you now starting to come up against those things with development people? I mean, are there challenges there?
Yes, to a certain degree. I mean, I started off my early part of my ITSM career as a change release manager in a software house, so development and testing, and I learnt the language of developers, if you like, not the coding, but how to work with them and take away any of the issues that we've had around processes. One of the challenges that we do have is we have a DevOps team, whatever that actually means. So again, it's trying to build the relationships there, but also start to break down the barriers between support and project, because whether it's dev and ops, support and project, it's much of a muchness. Ultimately, it's about getting people together, and I'm a big fan of trying to shift left to my service desk. So a lot of the stuff I've learned through the Phoenix projects and so on is, my job is to help get my guys ready for their next role. But on the flip side, I can then translate that into helping people get through those relevant checks and balances. So ITSM, ITIL definitely has a place, but like I said earlier about my change management piece, you can learn to be flexible. So, yeah.
Okay, just a little bit on the SIG, the special interest group that you're heading up and been involved with for some time, with Matt Hoey and so on. What sort of activities are you guys doing at the moment?
The most recent thing is the DevOps and the 3 ways of transition presentation that was well received at the ITSM 17 last year, 3 Musketeers. I showed up at the Northern Regional in Leeds and did it as 1 Musketeer back in March. But ultimately that's led to a white paper on how do you take those 3 ways of transition and apply them, 3 ways of DevOps and apply them to transition. So, getting from A to B, but also how you can experiment, how you can automate and leverage different capabilities and so on.
Feedback and experimentation.
Exactly. So again, a little bit like the 2-speed that we did a couple of years ago. It was kind of my kind of brainchild. How can I learn more? So I know a little bit from my experimentation, but also bringing in what Matt and Rob and Vaughan's have done. It's been a really good personal and professional journey there. So the riding the tails of the white paper is our most recent thing. And prior to that, we've run a few events, and we're looking forward to planning what the next few months bring.
Well, I think it's important to say that the special interest groups, the regional groups, but particularly those groups where people like yourself volunteer and spend time, they're kind of lifeblood of ITSM, and really appreciate the work that everybody does, and more people should join.
Yes. I
don't mean just join the organisation, I mean actually members participate in the work that you do. What have you got out of being part of that group, for example?
Oh, I've had so much out the last 4 years of being involved in the transition SIG, whether it's having the opportunity to learn from people and try and put things into practice, save a bit of money on consultancy, but also network with people, and also, you can give back some of the knowledge that you have and suggest things that other people might, that's a good idea. So for example, I take for granted now how to use a Kanban board. When I was doing that in the Northern region, most of the auditors didn't even know what Kanban was. So, the fact that I've learned that genuinely through the SIG. But the other bits are, you get to help each other out, and you get back more than you put in. But yeah, the power of networking and voluntary stuff is far more important to me than going on a training course. So that's where I tend to focus a lot of my energy. And if anybody wants to get in touch with the SIG, they can contact us either via the ITSMF, or we're on Twitter at Transition SIG.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for that. Thank you for this.